Hi, everyone. Welcome to Truth Teller Tales. I'm Ellen, and I'm so excited to be starting this channel because I really want to interview the truth tellers, the determined patriots, the Anons, the digital soldiers, all who put themselves out there during this most historic time. And they were willing to do that for the greater good of all this because they had the eyes to see what is happening right now. And I think that it is their time to tell their stories. And that's what this channel is all about. So I am beyond excited to have my very first guest be a fella that has been in this fight for many, many years. And on his Rumble channel alone, he has had close to 4 million views of his podcasts and videos. So without further ado, I'm so excited to bring on Joe. Hi, how are you?
I'm great, Ellen, and what you're doing is awesome, and anything I can do to help make that happen, I'm honored. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for just helping me and guiding me and giving me tips you're just been so wonderful. And I just again just want to tell you how much I appreciate you so much. And I first just want to start with I want to start at where you are now, and then I want to go back to your life. So right now, tell me about what you're doing.
Well, the most important thing I've been doing is I've been part of a group called the 12 Senses, which was created by Dr. David Martin. And for those that are not familiar with Dr. David Martin, he has a 20-so-minute speech that went viral of him speaking at Parliament on the COVID jabs and everything about the creation of COVID. It stems way back, and that has according to David, over 4 billion views. So he created the 12 Senses, and I met a great group of people there, including Dr. David Martin, Frank Priebe, Keith Cooley, and Dave and Cheryl O'Brien from the Church of Glad Tidings, and they put together the Rev 17 event. And I just asked because I know there's, when you see a video that's about 10 hours long, it's hard to share that and have everyone sift through the speakers. So I just wanted to make sure that those speakers' voices were heard individually. And then, there'll be probably shorter edits as well. But the most important, and what they're doing is they're creating Peace of Heaven, which is a safe haven for victims of human trafficking. It's a place for them
Wow.
to recover. And so that's currently what I'm up to more than anything else. And aside from, doing interviews on TruthStream and recording a new song in the studio, but that's the main focus. That's the most important thing that I'm doing right now, I suppose.
Yeah, but that's just so amazing, but it's all cumulative, isn't it? And what amazing time and the most important time for you to be doing and being a part of those projects. It's incredible and I appreciate it. I know millions of others as well do. And that's why I wanted to start this channel because I just admire folks like you so much who have really put aside
Thank you.
your time to do all of these things that are incredibly important. So now I just like to go back to you. This channel is about this your story. So tell me about you and where you were born, and let's just start.
Yeah. I was born in Lakewood, Washington, which is very close to Tacoma. The hospital's not there anymore. And I I went to public school for the first, I think, till I switched after fifth grade into sixth, and then I started in the private schools. And switching schools, that was a bit of a challenge. But the reason I bring that up is because when I think of my grandfather, who I'm named after, he came over from Italy at age 11 and to start a new life, and it really hit me several years ago when I was looking at his gravestone and seeing my name on there, essentially, that I just felt like I got to do something that I want him to be proud of what I do. And so
Yeah.
I think that there's been this awareness since I was little that there's something that I need to do, that there's some kind of mission that I'm on, and a lot of it never really made sense, because whether it's films, music, whatever, you do these projects and they're really important to you, and you want to get them out to the world, and I don't know, they may not land how you're hoping that they'll land, because I mean, ideally any artist wants to do what they love and then at least make a living from it, right? And so um I don't know, in a nutshell, so when the awakening happened, and then starting the podcast and then Truth Stream, it just felt like, oh, this is the mission that I was supposed to be doing, because I love learning and teaching, and part of my background is, um, I I had a instructor in college, and he didn't he didn't want 30% of his class to pass, and I was part of that. So I took him all the way through the school court system up at Western Washington University, delayed his tenure. But it was struggling with the current school system, that that was a big part of, me standing up, because I didn't really like being treated like that, nor him treating other people like that. And then I've been an outdoor ed instructor for at-risk youth, and
Oh,
that was
wow.
in the late '90s. So I don't know. It seems like all these pieces that I've done, whether it's music or film or standing up or helping children, like they all kind of came together, and it's really divine, because I didn't really plan. There were so many times I was frustrated, and I'm like, why is this stuff not working? And man, it just hits you like a ton of bricks when I start looking at all the things that I'm doing now that are aligned. And someone had a plan for me much different than the plan that I thought I had in mind. So I'll
Most
start with that.
definitely. No, that's great. And so take me back first to, did you ever meet your grandfather?
I did. He passed when I was around 10 years old. So, oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, he listened to opera and smoked cigars, and we'd go over there on Sundays for pasta, and he had a lot of love. And he had, my dad was the only son, and so yeah, I grew up in a very Italian American family. And my dad grew up in Auburn, Washington, and my grandfather worked on the railroads. He worked in Stampede Pass, and basically when he came over, he was he worked his way up, and then he was in charge of 60 men working on the tunnels. Not tunnels like where underneath the earth per se, but the tunnels where the trains go through. So he was a leader. People looked up to him to make decisions, and he was a leader in the rail yard. And so yeah, that I definitely met my grandfather, and he was a beautiful soul.
So even as a child, so when he came over, you said from Italy, he landed all the way in Washington State?
Yeah, yeah, by train. So,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, and then he worked the train yard. So he started young, and then eventually worked his way up in that world. So
So he was 11. So you said that he came when he was 11
yeah, he came over. Yeah, 10 or 11 is when he came over here, and
with
then
his parents?
no, I think he came with I don't know if it was an uncle or older
Oh,
brother. I'd have to
wow.
ask the family, but yeah, he was pretty, he was pretty young when he did it, and but I think he was with one family member.
I mean,
Yeah.
that is amazing. And when he would talk to you, would he tell you stories? Because that's a tenacity that we don't understand these days, you know?
Yeah. Most of the stories I heard through my cousins, and because I was so little, I don't think I had the questions that I would ask him now, especially now.
Yeah. And so, but it was funny that you said that you visited his grave, and he was the one, and his, I guess, his tenacity that he had was what motivated you, and he was the one that you kind of remembered and picked out as being the one that you wanted to make proud,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and my dad too, but when you're looking at your own name, and on a
Yeah,
gravestone and it's your
yeah.
grandfather, it's like that's his name. Like, look what he did. I got to do something cool, man. So that was
And
just my take on it. That's I want to do something where he'd be
absolutely.
proud and that he has this name and he came over here at 11 for our family and it's like, wow, I gotta make this worthwhile for him, especially me. It's the same name. So yeah.
Exactly. And so growing up in Washington State, was your family, um, because you had to have been a little rebellious or a little someone who questioned things. What did you have siblings that were the same? Were you the only one that was like that? Did your parents embrace that?
Yeah, I have 5 siblings. We're
Oh
all a little
wow.
bit rebellious. They aren't some of them are starting to see what's going on, but I don't really know. I mean, one brother watches the show occasionally, but my other siblings, they're not really on the same page um, with me. I mean, and they've all had the what. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, we were all a little bit rebellious. Um, I have one brother that not only got into I think it's Tisch where Spike Lee went to film school, but he also got into the Air Force Academy and he's now a pilot and he's served in the
wow.
military for 10 years. So yeah, my brother Chris, he's very left brain, right brain, and he reminds me a lot of my dad. But yeah, he's I hope hopefully he wakes up a little bit more soon to this. But yeah, we're all a little bit rebellious and that I had a skateboard ramp in the backyard and we'd asked all the neighbors if that was okay and they said yes, but then when it finally came to that they were upset about the noise and so they had a decibel reading come out here and I was like, wait a second, they've listed the close the audio that was closest and the loudest as the one that's at the neighbor's fence. So I started going to court with my skateboard and my skateboard pads and standing up because, by gosh, by golly, I got to do what's right. So yeah, I was starting to stand up for injustice as a 16-year-old teenager for skateboarding.
Well, of course, there it is. So you've had that in you, I feel, your whole life where you're standing up for injustice, and
Yeah,
I have a feeling that's gonna be somewhat of a pattern as I'm
probably.
talking to people, you know?
Yeah.
And were you the one of the 5 siblings that seemed to do that the most?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say exactly, but I mean, me being the oldest and
Oh, the oldest?
yeah, I'm the oldest and they all have dark hair. So I have blonde hair
Mm.
and look like my mom. And, for a little while, I thought I was adopted when I was 10. But anyway, but yeah, no, I didn't really have a role model of injustice to look up to like on a local level. I wasn't, there might have been, maybe something in films or what have you of examples of standing to justice, but in real life I didn't. It was me. I didn't know who else to really turn to. I'm like, I just got to do what I got to do. It was just this inner knowing and this inner drive and ambition, I suppose, that drove that.
Oh, I hear you for sure. And so and when you were talking about your college and that particular situation with the professor, was that an ongoing thing? Did you that surprise you? Were
Yeah,
you
yeah.
hesitant to stand up? I mean, tell me about that.
Well, I mean, it was Psych 307, which is the most challenging undergrad course. You're
Where
running
was
your
it?
own at Western Washington University in Bellingham.
Okay.
You're running your own experiment, and so and then you're working with TAs and doing the best you can, and when they give you when they you have to have a C minus, I think, to pass, and of course he gave me a D plus, and I was just like, I was doing everything I could, and because I'm usually pretty workable and just trying to figure out what the win-win is here. And but he didn't. I could tell he really didn't like my partner, and he in the lab in the class, and he really like went out of his way to degrade her. And there was quite a few other students that saw this, and they all said that they were going to because I ended up taking him to the school court system, and they all said they were going to
Of
be a
course.
part of it. But they of course, when it comes down to their grade and passing and just wanting to graduate, and because this is like the end of college for people when you're taking this class, they probably didn't want to screw with that. And I understand that. But with me, since it did affect me, and I didn't pass, and then I had to take it again, and then they made sure I didn't pass again, so then I was blackballed. And so you can't graduate if you can't take the course more than 2 times. And so it was 3 years later that I worked out another degree to get. But it was, I'm like, what am I? I'm just trying to go to school and get along with people and do my thing. And now my professor is the one in my way of graduating, and I'm just doing everything I can. And so yeah, it really pissed me off. So I took him through the school court system and delayed his tenure, and it blackballed myself. But I stood up for what was right, and I don't regret it. I was just a little surprised that I had to go through that, and was surprised for many, many years. But now I'm not surprised at all.
I mean, don't you feel like that was a foreshadowing lesson for you to be handling these bigger things where you're gonna be
100%.
blackballed in different oh my goodness
Yes.
gracious.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
absolutely.
the story. I mean, those are those life lessons where you can look back as your story is being written, right?
Right.
That you have those bubbles in time that you then take with you for this time for as bigger bubbles so that you're not completely shocked if
Right.
you're not the only one that doesn't get the thing in your arm or you're not 6 feet apart or whatever it
Right.
is that you can
I've already been
be
used
willing to.
to it. Yeah, I'm
Yes, you're
used to it.
used to it.
Yeah,
Exactly,
I
you
don't
know,
I
and
don't I don't care. I
yeah,
don't look for anyone outside of myself. Now I've gotten better at that. You don't just start off, maybe some people do, but I'm a pretty sensitive, empathetic, vulnerable person. And that's where I get to express that in my art and the characters I play in acting. Um but I know that when it's time, there's a word that keeps coming up with Lewis Herms, who's running for governor, and
yes,
Pastor Dave, and the word is meek. And and Ethan Lucas, we talked about that the other day. It's knowing when to really, it's using your strength and wherewithal at the right times. You don't just walk
right.
around, but when it's time. And I don't mess around with that. Like, I'm pretty gregarious and outgoing. I was class clown in high school, but there's
Oh
times
my god.
where I do not mess around at all, and I get very focused. And I and my friends know that, and one of them has been experiencing that from me a lot lately, because I'm not here to play games. And and people are going to know about that if they're dealing with me, especially personally. So yeah, I think it's we all wear a lot of hats, and sometimes you got to put the right hat on when it's that time.
So isn't it interesting that you were class clown in high school? I mean, because that makes sense too, though, right? Because you had some strong thoughts in your head and you had some convictions, but you also could present it with some humor,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I think, well, if that's important. I mean, importance or humor is important on our show, and there's a time for humor, and
Yeah.
getting people to laugh and disarm them
Yes.
is a wonderful I think skill to have. And but yeah, it all kind of plays together. And most people don't want to be someone around someone that's serious all the time. So I
Right.
don't know. I mean, usually I'm just kind of cool laid back dude, but and then I throw some jokes in. So
Yes.
I don't
But I
know.
do think to your point, it is a disarming way, to
Yeah,
be able to disarm people and so that they don't take things quite so seriously, but you sometimes in the future, like now after high school, you have a very serious message, but you can throw jokes in there.
yeah,
I just feel like our lives really do prepare us, you know?
right.
And and so after high school, so after and then college, w- when did you find the acting and what did you start off with and how did that lead you?
Well, I after college I moved to Sun Valley, Idaho, and just started working in restaurants. And there was this guy I worked with. I think his name was John Michael, and and I just kind of started in a fancy restaurant. And every time we would walk by something, or go to a table, he always said, never have an empty hand. He's like, always, wherever you're walking, you want to make sure you're not just wasting a trip. And it was just something he mentioned, but it stuck with me ever since. So I guess that's why I try and multitask at times. But so
Mhm.
that was a part of me, kind of waking up to looking at things a little bit differently. Like, okay, I don't want to waste my time. I want to take advantage of whatever it is that I'm doing. And then I finished the restaurant and work and living in Sun Valley for about a year. And then I took a 3 month trip with some of my college friends in Mexico. And something that came up there, and I'm not saying this in any way other than that someone said this to me. There was this guy named Sasha from Germany, and he said it was one day I was looking up at the mountain that we just came down. It wasn't real high, but there was a lightning storm, and it was kind of scary. But he just looked at me and he says, "Joe, you have a very powerful face. You have a very you look like a man of power." And I was in a space in my life then where I did not even know what to do with that information. I'm like, I don't think he really knows me very well. But that's something that stuck with me too. It's like these little things that people say, and I do remember thinking about it, several times, just thinking, well, if that is me, I want to use it for something good. I just see a
Yeah.
lot of these powerful people, if you will, using it for bad. And I just thought if I ever got to that place and I could use my voice and I could help people, I want to do it for the greater good. And so as I talk to you about these little things that come up are kind of flashing back in my head. And so anyway, then when I got back from that trip, I realized, okay, well, I heard this about this course called SEUS, School of Urban and Wilderness Survival. And I ended up becoming an outdoor ed for at-risk youth, for about a year and a half. And so when you're out there, these kids got themselves there, right? And you're letting them know, hey, you got yourself here. I'm I'm a guide, and you can either do what I tell you need to do and get out of here in 3 weeks, or you can try and do it your way, and it could take you a lot longer. And so the environment did a lot of the work, but they couldn't really get a read on me, right? Because if they kind of figure you out, then they got you. So they didn't know. So as far as getting back to the whole acting thing, they didn't really know if how to peg. Was I serious Joe? Was I Joker Joe? Was I their friend? But then I'd turn and I'd be very trying to help motivate them, because they've got to create their own food, their fires, their bedroll, all these things that they have to do in order to survive out there. So that's kind of where I started playing with these different parts of my personality, I suppose, because you had to out there. And then from there, I ended up getting involved in booking bands and bartending. Bartending is definitely a place that you use your personality, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then I was, yeah, then they asked me to book the bands. So, and I loved playing music and dealing with musicians and artists. And so then basically that opportunity came to an end, and then I ran my own bar, and I put the whole thing on my credit cards, because it's like,
What?
yeah, well, I bought a PA system because they asked me to book it, and I'm like, well, the bands need to sound good. And I was paying, and they were helping me pay that on my credit card. And then 6 months later, they said, well, we're either going to close the venue, or you and your business partner friend can take over. But you need to pay for first and last month's rent and all the inventory. And I'm like, well, I'm already kind of really deep in this, so what am I going to do? So I became the proprietor of the business through the rest of the rent and
Wow.
everything on my credit cards, because I didn't want anyone else to have to worry about it. I didn't want to borrow it from my parents. And I'm like, look, either I make my nut, or I don't, and it's on me. I'm sovereign. I'm in autonomous, and if it doesn't work, then I could just do a bankruptcy, because that's what bankruptcy was built for. I didn't do it in a way where I want to go shopping and buy a bunch of stuff and then
Yeah.
so anyway, so that was part of me stepping into my power, I suppose. So I'll stop there for a second. Go ahead. What's your next question?
And so the camp was first, and then you went into booking bands, and then that world. So you had your own bar,
Right.
which is crazy. And so is that what led first, your acting or your singing, would you say?
So I would say I got more into music when I was in my late teens. And oh well, here's another part of the story, and then I'll catch up to how the acting part came in.
Okay.
So I was in a band in college and did everything I could to keep it together. We started in Tacoma, and then I went to college, and you go through a series of different drummers and bass players, and uh, I was more of a rhythm guitar style. Well, finally, I've been trying to keep. It was really important to me to keep this together. I just felt like for some reason, this music thing is, if it's going to keep going, it's up to me. Because what happened was, the day before the singer was going to come up to Bellingham and record, he quit. He said, I don't have it in me anymore, Joe. You're up there, you're doing your college life. And I'm like, well, wait a second. When in the mid 90s, if you're going to get studio time, you couldn't just record in your house like you can now. So I'm
Right.
like, well, I'm not going to waste this opportunity. I'm going to go in. So the next day I went in with the drummer and the bass player and my guitar, and I just said his words. I didn't even sing his words. I just kind of said the words. So the other guys that were used to the song, that they would know where they are in the song. And then I sat on that for about a year, started singing, put out a little demo tape, and then that became a CD 2 years later, because
Wow.
a friend of mine, Mark Simmons, who works with all kinds of amazing artists all over the world. He still runs Pacific Studios in Tacoma, Washington.
Oh, wow.
So that's how the singing thing started. And only now am I finally like comfortable. I never started a band or singing or any of it to do it all on my own. I like playing with other people. There's a camaraderie,
Yeah.
and there's a vibe when you play with other people that you just can't get playing by yourself. And so that's kind of how the music thing started. The acting started. So when the club went bankrupt, when basically I realized that we weren't bringing in enough to keep this machine going, and then the owner of the establishment had another tenant that wanted to come in and had a lot deeper pockets than I did. I didn't know what to do, and I was really depressed. And my mom's like, is there, because I had went to Pierce College in Lakewood like 12 years before. And she's like, is there a class you want to take? Is there anything you want to do? And I'm like, the only thing that I want to do that I haven't done yet is act. And so I went and I took an acting class, and I met some student filmmakers, and they're like, wait a second, you're in your 30s, you're bankrupt, you ran a nightclub. They're like, Joe, you are a movie. Let's do a
Yeah.
movie about what you went through. And I was like, okay, I don't really have a whole lot else going on right now. So that started the whole filmmaking thing, because I'm like, well, I know a
Wow.
bunch of people in Tacoma. I can get established, because everyone knew they knew I didn't have any money. They knew I was like, well, this is where I'm at. Can we use your bar to shoot in? And I'm like, well, what we'll do is we'll cast someone that works here that likes acting. They could be the bartender, and they work there, so the owner trusts them already. And so it was a beautiful marriage of, helping others.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how I got my start in acting. So hopefully that answers that part of it. But yeah, that's how all this stuff has happened.
You are the movie, Joe.
I guess so, at least in my life.
Was that the first movie?
Yeah,
The
we made an independent film called Limbo, and that then led to a few other short films, with my friend Randy Sparks and Robbie and Justin Peterson. They run a group of bars around the Tacoma, Washington area, and they're now filmmakers. They just did a documentary on the Rainier beer and all the commercials that were in back in the, I think, 70s primarily and 80s. And so then that led to working with Chad, a guy named Chad, who wrote the screenplay of Perfect Life, and then Scott was actually the director of photography. Scott from TruthStream shot it, and there was times when Chad really couldn't get the right vibe of what he was looking for with me, and then Scott just said, "Hey, how about this? Just like think of this time when you were in this space in your life." And I was like, okay. And so Scott kind of helped direct me as well in the film. So A Perfect Life was the one that we shot in 2010. And I've been a lot of other, on IMDb. There's projects that people can see, because then I ended up moving to Utah, and I worked with Sharon Stone in a film called Border Run, and I wasn't really working with her. She was just in the trailer getting her like $10,000 wig adjusted for this movie. So yeah, I mean, but we didn't really talk. I was just kind of around her and on that set. So yeah, there's a lot of things
Yes.
I've done. But then once all this stuff started really happening in 2018, 2019, 2020, I just was like, what is going on here? And so
And what made that happen? So you're in this bubble, right, of making independent films, and I put your information on the
yeah.
screen too for that. And you're in that, so what made you, obviously by understanding your life, I know what made you, I'm starting to get the picture of, but what made you during that time be like, wait, and step out of that bubble and do, I mean, I'm just so curious as to what happened then.
There was a documentary, or I don't know if it was more like a 20-minute snippet on Native American women disappearing, and no one was responsible. If they disappeared from the reservation's like, well, they're off the reservation. But then the local police that aren't part of the reservation are like, well, but they're Native American, they're from the reservation, we can't do it. So no one was wanting to do anything. These women were disappearing into the cracks, and I was like, well, boy, isn't that convenient? That's weird, and that's not fair. And what how is this okay? And
Yeah.
so then I started, and this was probably 2019, and then started looking more into the human trafficking. And then the pandemic hit, and it was just like, wow, what is going on? And then I ended up interviewing Robert LeMay, who was the police officer who told Jay Inslee to go kiss his ass, frankly. And he was up in Washington State because he didn't want to get the jab. And I interviewed him, and 6 weeks later, he was, I believe, unalived, because he spoke about the depth of human trafficking in Washington State. And
Wow.
conveniently, he had died from COVID. But I have some friends that are in the medical world, and they believed that it was a combination of him going to the hospital, however he got there, and remdesivir and a breathing machine. So it was really harrowing. That was one of my first interviews before we even started TruthStream. I recorded that. I think that was in November no, November December of 2021, and then he passed in January of 2022. So a lot of all of
Wow.
that really led me to really getting on board on the human trafficking thing.
Yeah, and I mean, and for you to have that interview and for and for it to hit so close to home, the fact that he passed away. I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, Joe, the times with which we are living is unbelievable to me. And so that then led you to closer to what you're doing with your truth stream.
Yeah. Scott had, I was already doing interviews, but it was more local. And Scott's background is a little bit more woo woo in certain ways. And also, he was, he befriended when he was little, he befriended a pilot for someone who was a pilot for the Clintons. So he learned things at a very young age that I was not aware of. And so, with
Wow.
my background and what I was already doing, and Scott wanting to expand and speak to people that are more on a national, international level, we went ahead with it. At first, I was very reluctant because after experiencing Robert LeMay's passing, I took all the videos down and I freaked out for a few months. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? Because Robert LeMay said, be careful with what you do with this interview. And I'm like, I don't. He answered the question, and I just put it out there, and it didn't really get that viral. It only had like 5,000 to 8,000 views, depending on BitChute or I got a YouTube channel taken down. So so finally we did our first interview, actually almost 3 years ago, exactly, about 2 years, 2 years and 51 weeks. So we're about 10 days
Wow.
out from our third year of doing TruthStream.
Wow. And so b- I just got to go back because so the fella, that you interviewed there who warned you need to be careful, he then dies,
Yes.
right? And so that had to have obviously stopped you in your tracks and made you not so eager to
Yeah.
expand, let alone continue.
It scared the
Right?
shit out of me. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was like, wow. What, because this was before I even met the community and tribe of like the Lewis Herms and
Yeah.
everyone else, the SG Anons, the Derek Johnsons, the David Martins. Like, I didn't really have a network to turn to. Like, what do I do with this?
Yes. Yeah, yes. Yeah, that to me is just so it's just so interesting where, your whole life as I'm learning, you've met things head on and you said in this interview, if I didn't do it, I wouldn't get done. I was going to get it done. But this interview stopped you in your tracks, probably for one of the first times, right?
Yeah,
Because it all came so real what we're dealing with that it's not acting. It's not, I mean, this is real bad stuff.
yeah,
Eh,
yeah. And I just didn't know. I'll never probably know the real reason or what really happened. I just know he went from being an officer to being a security, kind of hired for, just pick up jobs because, he wasn't going to be a police officer anymore. And it wouldn't be very hard to track where he's working or have someone that's on the inside say, yeah, he's going to be there. Someone goes up, puts a, rag over his mouth with rufinol or what, or
Right.
ether or whatever, and knock
Yeah.
him out, get him in the hospital. But I don't know. I don't know. I'll never know. But I mean, I have
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
intuition. But yeah, it stopped me in my tracks. That's for sure.
But isn't it interesting too, Joe, that though it stopped you, it probably also motivated you after you got over the what the hell,
Yeah.
to know this was real and to keep pursuing it. And would you say, as you started the journey of interviewing more and more people, did I'm sure you learned something with every interview, right? That's kind of led you to where you are. Would you think that's true?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, each interview we're learning and teaching at the same time. And so it's been incredible, especially from Lewis Herms. I mean, he's been such an amazing part of TruthStream in my life. And now the fact he's stepping up and running for governor, like
Amazing.
I don't know. I mean, what an awesome soul. It's
Yes.
just, I mean, and these are my role models and the people that I work with. Like, it's incredible. It's really incredible because, so many of us, most of our lives, like, are we doing the right thing? Are we being heard? It's just those common things in life. And, finally it feels, and then the censorship comes in and you're like, I don't know anymore. I don't know if I know there's some people that watch the show and navigate through the censorship. But the numbers aren't important. It's the tribe that we've assembled and that are now part of, that's incredible. So yeah, it's been amazing.
It has, I mean, it's just so, it really has been just to watch all of you. And then a final point, how do you feel like your spirituality in this whole time that we're living in has grown and evolved with all of this?
Wow. I mean, how can it not? I mean,
Yeah.
my dad said to me before he passed in 2021.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, yeah, he had congestive heart failure. He was going to go regardless of the narrative that some
Yeah.
family members had fallen for. But no, he said you need to get right with the man upstairs. And because in my dad's world, he going to church was part of it. But um, for me, I knew what he meant in my way of doing things. And this journey, and now, I mean, and to work with the Church of Glad Tidings and Pastor Dave, and it's amazing because Pastor Dave, he said in one of the group chats at Rev 17 that people will come up to him and he's like, Dave, you don't even come across like a pastor. And he's like, thank you for that. So to be working in this spiritual battle with actually people that are fighting human trafficking and creating a safe haven for children, even in my music, there's undertones and there's spiritual imagery and things like that. But I wouldn't say I'm a Christian artist. I mean, I grew up on 80s, band Led Zeppelin and Echo and the Bunnymen and the Doors and stuff like that. And so I wouldn't want necessarily my music to be something where I'm trying to um, tap into or capture the Christian music community. But there's threads of that. There's threads of that in bands that I listen to, like Echo and the Bunnymen and the House Martins and things like that. And so that's kind of where my music comes from. But yeah, you can't go through this and not feel closer to Creator and that you're a spark and piece of God. There, whatever you want to call source. It's been absolutely profound. And I know this will make it, and I've said it on the show before. And whatever happens with this phrase is what'll happen with it. But I'm a sail and God's the wind, and that's
Oh,
how I live my life now.
I love that so much. And you can't help but be knocked over with some spiritual, bigger understanding of what's happening.
Right.
And I just listened the other day to one of your newer songs, I think, Lifting Veils.
Yep.
And that, I mean, just not only just the song, but the video
Right.
that goes with it. I mean, how cool and profound is that? I mean, I really enjoyed that very much. And it's just so cool again to see things that you've been doing when you worked at a bar and then had a bar and then booked bands and doing things like that, and now you're using those skills to do things that I think, whether it's your videos, whether it's what you're doing for child trafficking, or their songs, they're time capsules that are going to remain here and going to be looked at for hundreds of years, I believe, as we are living in this most profound time. So it has been such an honor to talk to you. I can't even tell you. And you have just been so wonderful to be my first guest. You're so brave, for sure.
You've made it. Your enthusiasm is contagious, and you've made it very easy. And you've already, mentioned on news treason that this is something that you, um, maybe it was an idea. I didn't see the episode, but you're stepping
Yeah.
into it, and they have your back. And so,
Yes.
we're a community, and I'll do my part to help get your show and your message and mission out there by all means, because you're a spiritual warrior as well. So absolutely.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate it more than you know. And is there any last thing you just want to make sure people know that you're doing? I know you've stated, but just to state again, or to look out for you and what you're doing.
Um, well, usually most of all that is either on the websites, or on my website, Joe Rosati Collective, which I probably need to update that soon too. Yeah, I'm working on a new song called Rising Time, and it's about the trafficking, and hopefully that's out before the end of the year, because there's likely going to be a video that goes with it as well, and we got to figure that part out. So, but no, just stay true to yourself, and a lot of times when you're, as my friend Michelle Skiow says, and when you get a hit, and when you align with the divine, you're you're getting a message, you're getting something, like you got this message to do the show, right, Ellen?
I did so strong. I did that was what I
Right.
was supposed to be doing. And what's fascinating to me is I knew that if I got the okay from those fellas that were doing David News Treason, Joe Rambo, and Mark at 8 Track, that I then they gave me a blessing and said that they thought it was a great idea. And then when I started and reached out, and then you reached out back, and you've been so amazing. Things like this happen, and I know that it's all supposed to be happening. So I'm
Right.
just so grateful to you, so 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 much. And it's just been an honor to have you be my first guest. So
Absolutely.
thank you
Everybody
again.
follow Ellen. She now has her name and her Rumble channel, and
Thanks to
so,
you.
and there's a reason I'll be putting this on our social media as well, so people can know who you are and follow the channel. And truth one, and the name is Truth Teller Tales, right? There it is right
Truth
there for
teller tales.
everybody.
Yep.
So
And yes, Scott Zimmerman is going to be my second interview with Beer at the Parade.
yes,
And
love
so
it.
I also have an email, truthtellertales@outlook.com. So if people have suggestions of who they think I should be interviewing and how to contact them, please do, because I'm open. I really want to get your messages out. I think I'm the bridge. It's time for your stories to be told. So I'm just super, super excited. And I want to thank you again, and thank you for being with me here today, Joe. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
It's an honor. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Bye.